When Christine Nixon became Victoria's Police Commissioner in 2001, she made history, the first woman to get to the very top of the force. 15 years on, she remains the only woman to have reached those heights anywhere in the country. Christine Nixon says something is not right in Australia's police services. The percentage of female officers has flatlined at about 25% and the number of recruit applications is falling. She'll address the issue in a keynote speech at the Queensland University of Technology tomorrow and joins me now from Brisbane. Christine Nixon, welcome.
Good evening.
Is that figure of 25% fairly uniform across the nation, and how concerning is it for you?
Look, it is, and I think the really important part is that it hasn't changed. And I was looking at this as part of my presentation for tomorrow, and it should be just much higher. We should, if we were growing in the way that I always hope we should for women in policing, we should be up in about the 33, 34%, but we're not. We're still down at 25 on average. And even some of the police organisations that had more women have fallen back.
So why has it just hit this wall?
It's a really good question. It was on a trajectory. I joined in 72, and by about 92, there were 11%, and by about 2006, we got up to 23%. By 2016, we've got to 25%. So I think it's maybe just a lack of focus, a whole sort of series of things I think that the commissioners need to take into account to improve the rate and to attract and make policing more attractive for women.
In 2003, 2 years into your role as Victoria Police Commissioner, you said female officers were seen as on the fringe. Has that changed?
No, I think many of them have. They've achieved really good things. They've been recognised in many sorts of ways. But whilst you're still at that percentage of 25%, you're still not a significant number. I'd love to see the number up at about 35% or 40%. And I think once you get that kind of a number of women in policing, then you can bring about real change in the culture.
Also in 2003, faced with the lowest representation of female officers in the country, you tried to introduce a quota. What happened with that?
It was very interesting. I looked at Victoria Police numbers, and at that stage there were only 14% women, which was, about 16% below New South Wales. So I simply said we'd look for an exemption and we would look to target and focus on women. The Police Association of Victoria took me to court and they won, and I lost.
Under discrimination law?
That's right, under discrimination law. But I said to myself, I don't really care. We're going to do it. We're going to attract women. We're going to do as much as we possibly can. And at one point in about, 2006, about 45% of the applicants to join Victoria Police were women.
And what are they now?
Not sure. The figures aren't exactly as available as they should be. I think it's lower, simply because you're just not seeing the numbers increase. So you've got to get to a significant number of people applying and getting through the system before you can start to push up the numbers. You
once said the introduction of capsicum spray was a big development for female police. What effect did it have? I've listened for a long time, to the idea that women can't cope, and I started out without a gun and obviously without capsicum spray, and worked on the streets in Darlinghurst, and I did the job and I did it competently. And eventually over time, police officers were equipped with a range of that kind of defensive tools, I guess. And I suppose it made a difference to some women, but for many others, they just got on and did their job and they didn't use the capsicum spray. Vast amount of police officers never use capsicum spray. They use their intellect, they use their problem-solving skills, and they solve issues. So there's no reason why women can't be 50% or more?
That's true, and of course more recently that's been the kind of statements from a range of commissioners who've said across Australia that they're looking to have 50% of the recruits as females. And I think it's the Northern Territory, and I rang up the Northern Territory Commissioner and couldn't get to him, but I did give an interview. Same with Australian Federal Police, same with Victoria and South Australia. So I just hope that they do what they have said they will do, and our policing in this country will be much better for it.
What message is it sending when you've got this flatlining rate of 25%?
Look, I'm not even sure that many of the women in policing would even know. This is not a common kind of knowledge. They had recently had a conference in New South Wales for the 100th anniversary. last year, and recently in Victoria they had awards for women in policing. I'm not sure they really even understand. I mean, some women, of course, like I know women in broader sector would say, well, you know, that's okay, I'm fine, I don't need special treatment, and I don't need to find ways to attract women. And that's fine, but all of those women got there because we had anti-discrimination legislation, because many of us pushed boundaries, got maternity leave, got flexible work conditions, and then tried to improve the way women were promoted. So I think it's important that we think a bit differently about that issue.
A report in August into the AFP found 46% of women and 20% of men had been sexually harassed, something even Commissioner Andrew Colvin said he found shocking. What did you think when you heard those figures?
Same as him. I just thought it was terrible. And it is such an indication of a culture that is looking to reject what I call the other. Now, whether the other was shorter police officers or perhaps was people from different cultural backgrounds or women. And I think that it needs to be tackled by the management of policing. And I know in Victoria they had a study, a bit less number of women over the sort of 5 years had said they were harassed. But it now needs to be tackled, and if people do that, they need to be taken before tribunals or courts or whatever is appropriate and got out of the organisation. What bothers me when you have that kind of harassment is what are they doing to the citizens? And it's kind of a culture that builds, and we need to change that culture.
Okay, so to change that culture, to get more women into the force, what are the practical measures the commissioners need to take?
You need to advertise. In ads in Victoria in 2001, we had a recruiting campaign, but many of the people who featured in that were women with kids, people from different cultural backgrounds. So you need to make it look like it's a job where women would be welcomed. You need to go out to the schools, you need to go out to the universities, you need to absolutely focus. And you have many senior women also involved talking about what a great job it is. And certainly for me, I was in the police for a long, long time. And it was, for the vast majority of it, a terrific job to be in. So I think it's about selling it. It's about absolutely holding people accountable for delivering on those targets. You have to say to the managers in recruiting and in the management command, we are going to do this and I'm going to hold you accountable for it. And I hope they do.
I just want to get a quick reflection on some other law and order issues.
Sure.
Now that you've thrown off the cloak of Commissioner, I've read you
Sure.
support treating drug addiction as a health issue first rather than a policing issue. Does that mean you think some drugs should be decriminalised?
Look, I think in many cases it is a health issue. You know, you look at people in jail and many of them have mental health issues and drug and alcohol addiction. I think the figure's 70%. So I think we have to really think about, is this idea of just putting people in jail or charging them, putting them through the criminal justice system the way to do it? I think drug courts has been a great way to do it. And one of the things you do is kind of get the person before a court and get some action taken. But I do think we have to think about the police resources that go into minor drug possession. I'm not talking about ice, I'm not talking about amphetamines, I think perhaps marijuana, but I think we need to think about how you treat the person and how you get them off that addiction.
So decriminalising marijuana?
Well, I think personal possession, I mean, it's been tried in different places, and I know the quality of marijuana is so much higher these days and the potency of it, but I think you've just got to say, where's your best outcomes going to come from, and where should you put your resources?
All right, unfortunately we're out of time, Christine Nixon, but thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Matt.